And welcome to SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk. Sunny, warm, 85 degrees, East Lansing, Michigan. It's not 85 degrees. You can tell. Got a little snow up here in the bushes, Paul. It's still football season. Penn State's coming to town. It should be cold weather, Paul.
Yeah, apparently.
Cold weather. What I like about Penn State, Michigan State is when they've played in the past, cold weather, grass stains. They play on God's green earth, Paul. That's grass. In the Midwest, that's an endangered species these days for football fields. You're going to see grass stains, cold weather, wear your layers. Michigan State, both teams are only won 3 games. Both teams have to win out to get to a bowl game. Didn't see that coming, Paul, especially with Penn State. But Penn State played good last week, played well last week, played well for half the game against Ohio State. You've been watching Penn State a little bit. Before we get into the coaching situation and all that, Penn State's going to bring something this weekend, do you think?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, if they haven't quit already, I mean, both teams. If neither of these teams have quit already, they're not going to quit on Saturday. And Penn State's a good football team. They haven't had the outcome that they've wanted, but they're making progress. They've got a solid defense. The quarterback played pretty well last weekend. They got a run game that hasn't been as consistent as they wanted to, but they can still put a hole in Michigan State. And Michigan State's got to be better than they were against Minnesota. And anybody looking at Penn State and saying, hey, they've got a freshman quarterback that hasn't done nothing, well, he's had starts or played significantly against 3 top 5 scoring defenses, and Michigan State is not a top 5 scoring defense. So if Michigan State can't stop the run, they're going to have a hard time with that quarterback, and it's going to be a tough game on Saturday. The thing that both of these teams have been doing is finding ways to lose. And, so for one of these teams, they're going to find a way to get in the win column. I don't think either one of them is going to be happy with a loss. I don't think a win will move the dial. But for Michigan State seniors on senior day, the guys that haven't checked out, that continue to get their teammates up and ready for games, they deserve a victory. And I hope they get one, because it's been a long season for these guys. And, regardless of what you think about the future of the coaching situation, these guys deserve, for as hard as they've played, they deserve a win. And getting one against any of these remaining 3 teams isn't going to be easy.
Right. Penn State, here's the thing, with all their talent, if they start having a good day, they could all explode and just have a real fun day for Penn State. I mean, that's possible. That's something that could happen. And if this one gets away from Michigan State and they lose ugly by 20 or so, which could happen, then we're right back where we were after the UCLA game. But Michigan State's been playing hard enough, playing well enough to be competitive against Indiana. Minnesota's not a very good team. Michigan State was in position to win that one. Michigan State is going to need to replicate that type of performance. Alessio Milivojevic, I assume, is going to be starting. Jonathan Smith would not name him as a starter on Monday. I understand why he didn't want to name it at that point. That's what I'm expecting. You expecting that too, Milivojevic to start?
There's no doubt. I mean, Brian Lindgren talked today, offensive coordinator Brian Lindgren, and he didn't come out and say that, Alessio is the guy, but he basically said Alessio is the guy without saying it, and he indicated that they're not eliminating the possibility that Childs might play in a certain circumstance, but the body language and everything from Brian Lindgren, who's pretty, he's pretty transparent for the most part. It's Alessio's team moving forward. You wouldn't talk as much about how well Aiden Childs handled the demotion. You wouldn't talk about the positives and what Alessio did, the spark that he's given the offense, if this wasn't his team moving forward. And frankly, they needed a spark. They got one from him, and he wasn't perfect in that game, but I think he does give them their best chance, provided he gets a little bit of pass protection. And, Minnesota's not a good team, as you mentioned, but they do get after the quarterback. This Penn State team doesn't have great sack numbers, but they do have a good pass rush. And so Michigan State's got to do a better job with pass protection, because I don't think Alessio can handle the beating that he got against Minnesota, on a continuous game-to-game basis, especially, well, it's not going to be cold this week in the Spartan Stadium as it is right now, but you just cannot take the kind of shots that he took game after game without there being an impact. In my opinion, he probably earned a lot of respect from his teammates watching the film of how he stood in there, how he took hits. And you see that sometimes with young quarterbacks, the more of those hits you take, the harder it is to stand in there. And we'll have to see how that is moving forward. We'll see if he's better at the game management type of stuff. if during the bye week that little extra preparation time gives them a little bit more juice for what Penn State wants to do. But just the experience he gained on the road against a good pass rush, that helps. But 300 and some yards passing, he had a good game for Michigan State, and he's the reason why they had a chance to win, one of the big reasons why he had a chance to win. And he's going to have to play really good against Penn State this weekend, and they're also going to have to get some production from the run game.
And he stood in there with a pass protection. He trusted a pass protection that really shouldn't have been trusted. Sometimes, and hanging in there and making passes. Sometimes hanging in there, a couple of sacks were coverage sacks. But to his credit, the confidence he had in that protection, which really didn't merit any confidence, a lot of guts, and that kid's got something. We saw him throw an interception in his one pass attempt last year against Rutgers, and got a pick six in his one pass attempt against Western Michigan, his first pass attempt. So he had two pass attempts in his college career, both interceptions. We heard good things about him. Sometimes we hear good things about all the players, but I really felt like we were sincerely hearing good things about him when I was talking to some people on the record and off the record. And now we're seeing it. We saw it in some mop-up situations. The kid's got something. I think he processes quickly. I think he's got a quick release, accurate, point A to point B, gets it there. And with just one start as a redshirt freshman, over 300 yards, the kid's got something, and it's going to be interesting to see him continue to play out. I mean, as a second-year college player, he's moved ahead of Childs right now. Think about Childs when he was a second-year college player coming in here with his first starts last year. Had a long way to go in terms of learning. Alessio was ahead of where he was, and he's ahead of where he is right now. Different type of player. Understand that they needed a spark and all that. And I'm intrigued to see what he looks like here against Penn State. Like you said, Penn State, good pass rush, two really good defensive ends. They were really putting a lot of heat on Mendoza last week. Michigan State's pass protection has not been trustworthy for a number of reasons, injuries and so forth. That part of it, part's going to be a tough matchup for Michigan State. The coaches talk about how the players remain bought in, and we can see that at Minnesota. They've had a bye week. I would think that'd be a real hard time to have a bye week when you're coming off a sixth straight loss and a heartbreaking loss like that. I'm guessing that's the worst possible time to have a bye week. I don't know. I'm not a sports psychologist, but whether or not they can answer the bell one more time and do something here for so-called Senior Day, we'll see what it looks like. Like you said, right now it's 30 degrees here in East Lansing. It's supposed to be in the 50s, I think, on Saturday. So one last chance to come here and tailgate for Senior Day. Jack Velling spoke today. Elijah Tautoliver, a couple of seniors for Senior Day. Tautoliver's been here for about 9 months. Velling's been here for 2 years. Velling came here, second team All Pac-10. A lot of people thought he was going to be a breakout, big-time Big Ten receiver. He's been okay. He's not been great. He is what he is. He's been working at it. It's our fault for maybe hyping him up too much. But he said something today about Michigan State. He said, quote, "It's been awesome." He loves Michigan State. That's a kid from Seattle that went to Oregon State, which is about 3.5 hours from Corvallis, and big personal move for him to come out here. But I thought he's genuine. I think he really loves Michigan State. Paul, you get that read too?
Yeah, but it's also with sacrifice. Like you mentioned, how it's tough. You only get to go home twice a year to see your family. Whereas when he was at Oregon State, he could drive less than 3 hours. The distance between Chicago and Lansing, or Chicago and Grand Rapids, so he's made personal sacrifices to come here. It's been difficult. None of these seniors wanted it to go this way. None of these seniors thought that it was going to go this way, and so it's tough to them, and kudos to them for continuing to grind and fight. And I thought he said something else that was interesting today. As someone asked him why he hasn't quit, or why he hasn't quit, and he's like, because you're playing for the guy next to you, and you don't do that in football, otherwise you get hurt. You got to come in and play for your teammates every single day. And I do think that by and large, there is a lot of guys on this team that are playing for their teammates. You talked about the bye week, and it might be a tough time. I agree with you, and I can see that Michigan State needed the bye week last time, and they came out and had a terrible game against UCLA. They went really hard. It was energetic. We heard all kinds of good things about the progress being made during the bye week, and it ended up being a real egg being laid by Michigan State, which I kind of felt like after that first scoring drive against UCLA, they thought that it was going to be a pillow fight, and they were going to roll UCLA like other teams did before their little turnaround and their coaching change and that stuff. Michigan State was in for a rude awakening there. This bye week, I'm not going to say, hey, it's a bad timing, because you don't know necessarily if some of the young guys that got extra reps and might get an opportunity in this game might give Michigan State a spark. You don't know if some of those guys that have been hurting, dinged up, you guys like Mekhi Frazier, if they'll have a little extra juice when they're able to play, or a guy like Jordan Hall who's played really dinged up all season long, if this bye week will help him. I mean, he's going to saddle up no matter what. He always has. But maybe a couple extra days off, will benefit a guy like that. I don't know how a team's going to respond and handle the bye week. Just like I don't know how Penn State's going to respond losing a game that they thought they had won against Indiana. You just don't know like what the psychology is in those instances. But it should be interesting. It's disappointing to me that both of these teams aren't playing a game in November with something on the line. We were just talking about just a few minutes ago before we came on camera about, there's been a lot of really big games between Michigan State and Penn State, during the last 20 years. And it's been for the most part, with a few exceptions on either side, it's been a really, really competitive game for this land-grant trophy. The ugliest trophy in trophy games, the most...
Very 80s.
Yeah, it's designed by white guys, old white guys, in a golf course locker room.
Yeah, they're the worst.
The kind of guys that use the combs and the blue water. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh, what's up with that?
Yeah.
The blue water.
Does anyone ever use that?
Not that I've ever seen.
I don't know. If you've never seen blue water, a comb in the blue water, it's a staple of lame golf course locker rooms across the country. But anyways,
it's a problem.
I digress. There's been a lot of great games between these two programs.
Yes.
A lot of hard, physical, tough, games that kind of epitomize what college football is. These aren't like traditional rivals, but they're blue-collar schools, blue-collar from Rust Belt states. They play hard, and they do it the right way. And it's disappointing to me that neither of these teams have got anything going except for pride. But you know what? That's another thing that, I expect both these teams to play for pride. And I guess that's a good thing. And I do expect it to be physical. Michigan State better be ready for that. I think Penn State better be ready for that too. I don't think either of these teams are gonna kind of fold.
Nothing against old white guys. By the way, I said that. I shouldn't have said that, but we love them too. I'm an old white guy. I think that's what I am.
So am I. I have a lot of self-loathing.
The Penn State, Michigan State, I like it, like we were talking about earlier. I like the grass stains. I like the cold weather, and I like the series. It's been interrupted in recent years. When it used to be the last game of the season, I liked it. In the Big Ten East, it was not easy for Michigan State when Michigan State had to play Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State every single year. That was a tough dance card. And then when they reshuffled the Big Ten, you could protect some rivalries in Michigan State and Penn State. I don't think either side wanted to protect it. I think Michigan State maybe didn't want to protect it because you don't really – Penn State most times is going to be pretty good, and if you can get them off the schedule once in a while, usually over the course of 25 years it might be a good thing. Penn State, of course, didn't want to protect the rivalry because they don't have rivals, Paul. How would Penn State do against Pittsburgh this year? They don't want to play Pittsburgh. They're afraid of Pittsburgh. They won't play them. Maryland's not a rival for them. Ohio State's not a rival for them. Michigan, they're unrivaled, Paul. It's in their letterhead. It's in this part. They claim we're unrivaled, like that's some great thing.
I think that's part of the thing that hurt. One of the things that hurt James Franklin. Like that. I just think like he rolled with that whole unrivaled stuff, and college football.
What's wrong with the rivalry?
I don't know. What's wrong with college football is there's not enough rivalries anymore, and you got these mega conferences, and you don't have the traditional geographical rivalries and all that type of stuff. But
are they afraid of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that because we talked about that in the past. I mean, this is more about like loser leave home, and
we've got a lot of problems here too, right?
Yeah, so like I'm not going to be talking about.
I do love Penn State. I like the stadium. I like driving out there.
And I got to say this too, and I say it every year. They do have the best uniforms in college football.
Love them,
in my opinion.
Love good hockey uniforms too. I love it.
So, anyways,
I'm just teasing them. I don't really mean it. Go ahead.
They're not in the mood for that this year. And
my fault. Penn State. Now Michigan State with the coaching situation. Everybody wants to talk about that. They're coaching for their jobs. I think they know that. Jonathan Smith is always calm and reserved on the sideline. And he's calm and reserved about all of this. You watch his press conference yesterday after the Minnesota game, just a twinge more pulse to him in the last couple of weeks, but you don't get any idea that there's any anxiety there at all, any anxiousness. He's just showing up, going to work every day, expecting it's going to turn around. They thought they were going to beat Minnesota. I'm sure they're expecting to win this game. They're just checking in and doing their job. If they win a couple of games and get to 5-7, I'll just say this: at the administration level, you know, and I know they've been talking about it. You have to have a contingency plan for any eventuality. You know, in the war room, it's been discussed. You can assume that's been the case. I know that's been the case. It's being talked about. The coaches know it. So what do they have to do to keep their job? That depends on who you talk to. And, of course, J-Bat would have that decision. And he didn't want to have a decision like this in year number 1. It would probably help him out if Michigan State were able to win 2 of the last 3. If you get to 5-7 and you're the same as last year, theoretically, you could make a case that you're still building and so forth. How that plays with the fans and your constituents, that's a whole other thing. A lot of the fans, you know, on our message board, talk shows, just people you talk to, that UCLA game was super damaging. Just the way the product looked on the field and on the sideline. A lot of fans were like, this is not working. A lot of media members are saying that. You know, boosters a little bit, you hear that, the big donors. There's been a few of the big donors that are not happy. There's a lot of wait and see is what I'm getting to, Paul. More wait and see going on administratively and so forth than maybe a lot of pundits would have thought 3 weeks ago when people were saying it's a 90% chance that Smith is going to be gone. It's not 90%, but they need to show some traction here at the end of the season. The glimmers of it you saw against Indiana, Michigan, and Minnesota. They need to finish with more of that. I'm not going to put a 2 out of 3 thing. I just said 5-7 would make it theoretically an argument. They went out 6-6. He's coming back, Paul. I got to believe that. That's what they're going for right now. In the meantime, if you are an athletic director in his tight circle of other people and people within the industry that he may talk to and so forth, you at least have to take a look to see what else would be out there. If we make a change, you know, what type of people are we going to be looking for? It's not a deal where all of a sudden you fire a guy on November 25th, and then you say, we're going to conduct a national search, we're going to hire a headhunting firm, and we're starting right now, and we're going to look at it. No, you don't have time to do that. You need to be doing that stuff right now. And you have to believe that that's been talked about a little bit, what the pool of candidates would be. And, Paul, I'm not sure the pool of candidates would be all that great. There's a couple out there that we've talked about that would be interested, and I'm putting the cart way ahead of the horse. But these are all things, in terms of being prepared for every eventuality, that they have to be looking at, they have looked at. Meanwhile, there's still games to be played.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like we're talking about the same thing every week.
Every 3 years?
You know, I mean, with our VCast, lately, we've been talking about the same thing. But I do think that
that's what they're talking about.
I understand that.
That's the news.
But there's a few things. A, they're not going to win out. You know,
they're
6-6. I mean, we talk about it every, like the last few years. You write it until it's not there. It's not going to happen. B, 5-7. Is that good enough for him to keep his job? Only, in my opinion, if there's not a viable candidate out there that's an obvious alternative, because that's what it comes down to. The stuff that's being looked at right now is there somebody that's going to be effective enough where they're going to be able to, because you're going to have to rebuild the entire program. You're going to lose a bunch of guys in the transfer portal. I don't care who you hire. I don't care when you're going to lose, like recruiting class. So these are all things that you're going to lose. You're going to have to do a quick rebuild. You got to have the resources for that, but you have to have the right candidate. So, like what's the damage of keeping a 5-7 coach? Well, you have a disillusioned fan base. You're kicking the can towards maybe down the road and hoping that the things that probably aren't right with the program are going to suddenly get better. And I think people learn over the course of time, but there's certain things that aren't going to change, that need to change. And from a fan standpoint, Michigan State fans need to know that they have a football coach that's going to fight for their team and fight for their program, and it's got to be visible. I don't care what your demeanor is on the sideline. You could be a calm demeanor, but you got to pick your spots and you got to fight for your team, and you've got to show emotion. And so people aren't saying, well, hey, that there is no anxiety, because I promise you, for him, he might not show there's anxiety, but there's a ton of anxiety with the future. He knows what's at stake. He knows what he's got going on. People don't just go through life robotically and not have anxiety. They either show anxiety or they don't show anxiety. Jonathan Smith is very emotionless for the most part in public settings, but I promise you that there's a whole lot of anxiety inside that football building, and they know they're coaching for their job. But Michigan State's not going to make a move just to make a move and bring in a guy that's not going to get them what they need and to have a winning program. I think the risk of bringing in a below average coach or a coach that you don't believe in is a big one. And Jay Batt's not going to stake his professional future on hiring the wrong guy.
Meaning bringing in a below average coach. You mean?
I mean, you don't want to bring in a guy. You don't want to bring in a coach to replace a current coach that's going to have a 5-7 season next year, or risk worse because you're at a complete rebuild because the name isn't splashy enough to attract top-level talent, or you don't have the money to pay top-level talent to come in here. I mean, it's going to some extent, if you hire a coach, you're going to have money to go mercenary and fill a roster. And you
need to show that you've got something that he didn't have.
Yeah, absolutely. But you also have to have the resources to do it. It can't just be a personality thing and say, hey, we're going to replace a coach who's got, who's more energetic, who's got a more Dan Campbell, Mark D'Antonio, players coach but disciplinarian type personality that does well here. That's not good enough just to have that guy come in. He's got to have the resources to win, and you can't expect him to win a rock fight with just rocks alone. You got to have bodies to throw those rocks, and it's competitive. It's an arms race in the Big Ten, so you can't just have a personality. It's not all of a sudden bring a guy in and all of a sudden you're a 10-win team. It's not like that. You got to build and you got to do it the right way, but you got to have someone that can inspire your team, fight for your team, and also inspire the fan base. And so I don't know if the coaching change is going to happen this year, but right now, it just appears like if it doesn't, it's kicking the can down the road, and we see that a lot in college football. Sometimes it works out. In this, I don't know if there's enough structural. If things are structurally sound enough in the program for Michigan State to build a winning program the way things currently are, I think there's got to be a lot of change in the way things are done, and it's not just a matter of showing emotion on the sideline. Although I will say that did help quite a bit when Joe Rossi came out of the press box.
Made a difference. I agree. They need to show some foundational support here if you're going to go out and market this job to a new coach coming in, or you're going to go out and try to attract a coach. You need to present that there's going to be support here that wasn't quite ready to hit the ground running when they arrived. Meanwhile, these guys are going to try to, try to bootstrap this thing, but again, we'll see whether they've got all that vinegar to make that happen, and we'll learn more about it here on Saturday against Penn State. Penn State's going to come in, and if things begin to go well for Penn State, they might roll. If that happens, Sunday's going to be a little bit ugly. And Lindgren said, as we wrap up here, Lindgren did say that that it's been a challenge to keep the guys motivated. He was asked, how do you guys, how do you keep these guys, I don't know if motivated was the right word, but how do you keep them, showing up, punching the card to go to work every day? And he said it is a challenge, which is a little bit, I can understand why that's the case, but that's a stark admission. He's being honest, but these are college kids that some of the guys are eager to get a new chance. Alessio's going to be fired up for his first start at home, of course. But I'll let you talk about that in a minute. But first of all, as you know, Michigan's recycling rate has fallen from 90% to 73%, Paul. Look, I'm losing you. Did you know 90% to 73% in recent years? Michiganders are squandering $105 million per year by not taking back their bottles and cans. That's hurting our environment. So help the environment, help yourself, help your beaches and lakes. They're your roads, your lakes, your beaches. Take them back. Take back those bottles and cans. Take them back. A message from Schupan, a great Michigan company dedicated to recycling and dedicated to the Michigan State Spartans, Paul. Anything else? I got one more for you. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, Paul, and you will get up to $1,500 on your first bet, $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. BetMGM is a sponsor of On3.com, and we mentioned these things here for them. We got a disclaimer coming up about it also, but download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. So make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. Go to betmgm.com. 21 over only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In Massachusetts, call 1-800-327-5050. In Iowa, call 1-800-981-0023. In Puerto Rico, call 1-800-981-0023. In Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Paul, Michigan State, basketball. You were right. San Jose State on Thursday. Be over there for basketball practice coming up later today. You'll see Izzo here on the our YouTube channel. Give us a like here at the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Go to SpartanMag.com. $1, you'll become a subscriber. Gut feel this Saturday. What are you thinking?
Michigan State, Penn State. I think Michigan State's only chance is to be able to run the football respectively. You know, like I think they've done some good things against some pretty decent defenses running the football when the run blocking is. They've had decent run blocking, you know, like better than I've expected. The pass protection's been really bad, but Michigan State's got to be able to come out and they've got to be able to run the football respectively. I think Alessio, it's not going to be a deal. It's not going to be a deal. I don't think this is going to be the case where Michigan State can continuously in the first half harness a certain level on defense and do it over and over and over again if the offense isn't moving the ball and scoring points. I think this is one of those deals where Michigan State really can't afford to get in a deal where Penn State's running the football, maybe not doing a ton with it, but you get to a situation like the Michigan game where things kind of snowball, unravel in the second half. That's what happens with the run game. It's a sledgehammer. Eventually something breaks. I think Michigan State's got to be pretty competent on both sides of the ball, but I think running the football, and then Alessio's got to be like accurate with his passes early and get a couple good drives under his belt. He's got to get that early rhythm, and then I think Michigan State has a chance to be competitive.
Not much margin for error. Considering you're playing at 3-16, the margin for error is still slim.
Yeah, and it's a reminder, and I hate saying this because people don't want to hear it, but it's like when you talk about Minnesota not being a good team, Nebraska's not a good team. You know, UCLA's not a great team. I mean, these are teams like, you know, Maryland's not a great team. There's a lot of teams with good talent. There's a lot of parity in this Big Ten, and you've got to execute. You've got to do things to help you win games like this. And, you know, Michigan State finds ways to lose, and that's kind of my, you know, like I don't know how you snap out of that. I don't know if there's I don't think there's a. We've seen good coaches go through having teams like this. Like Mark D'Antonio has had a couple of years like this where, but they've eventually found ways to kind of salvage it at the end. I think of some of those seasons. But some teams find ways to lose. And I don't think there's a way you can coach your way out of it. It just has to be one of those deals where players play their way through it and have a breakthrough. And I don't know. It's like one of those deals, whether it's a slump if you're a hitter in baseball, or if you're a golfer and you've got the yips, you just got to work your way through it. And, and at some point you got to pray that the dam breaks in your favor. And Michigan State's got to find a way to win. That's the bottom line. But I do think they can help themselves by having a little bit of consistency in the passing game, carry the good from Minnesota. If they can get a little bit better pass protection, which they have to have, that'll be easier. But you got to have you got to have some good consistent runs, not like big losses. And that's like when the run game has been okay. It's okay to have 3-yard runs, 2-yard runs, and then mix in the 7. But don't give up those negative 7-yard runs or those type of things, or have like those catastrophic penalties with illegal hands to the face, or those kind of like discipline penalties. I don't know what's going to happen this weekend. I expect a physical football game. One of these teams is going to get a win. I do know that, and I hope for Michigan State seniors it's them because they deserve it. And so I'll finish where I started. I feel bad for these guys, and they deserve something good to happen, and they deserve to carry around the ugliest trophy in college sports.
Think there'll be any officiating situations that are thrown to the Big Ten office like we've seen the last couple of games? What Jonathan Smith said at the press conference yesterday, they talked to the Big Ten about it. Big Ten gave them some feedback on it. You guys all know what was said about that. They anticipated offside in the Michigan game. It sounds like the Big Ten admitted some fault there, anticipated something that wasn't there. They called a flag on something that they thought they saw but didn't see. The Minnesota game with the flag, which was a game changer there at the end, like Lindgren said today, they're expecting to have first and goal there at the 2-yard line, and the flag was picked up. And the pass interference was reversed. Paul, I really believe that one of the officials watched the replay on the scoreboard there, and that replay there was no contact in the last 5 strides of that thing, but there was like a jersey pull earlier in that thing. And that's what one person flew. But it was a towel, I think.
Guy closest to the play threw the flag, right?
He saw something getting grabbed, I suspect, because there was nothing else going on there, and there was a towel, so he did see something through a flag. Another guy, can't prove this, I think he saw the scoreboard, saw the last 5 strides, wasn't aware of the towel pull. I'm not saying the towel pull impeded his progress, but they picked up a flag after the ball had been set, and that whole thing changed around.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because you go back to I don't want to rip on Jonathan Smith, but I go back to one guy on one sideline and PJ Fleck is on the officials nonstop the entire game, trying to get calls, fighting for his guys nonstop, and we see what Tom Izzo, and sometimes when you're on those guys a lot, you're gonna get a call, and sometimes, it might be easier to throw a flag or pick up a flag on a guy that's not going to give you heat. Yeah. It's just a human nature thing, and I hate to say it. But you got to pick your spots, and you got to fight for your team. And I think, when you're looking at candidates for coaches that fit Michigan State, what works well in our state, in the Midwest, is someone that they don't care if you're born on third base. They're going to outwork you, and they're going to outscrap you, and they're going to come there with a belief and the emotion, and they're going to get their team to rise up and play at a level that they don't know they can play. Kurt Signetti in Indiana, everyone's like, "Oh, what does he do?" Well, he's crazy in a good way. He reminds me of Danny Hurley over at at UConn, but he's a Midwestern guy from Pennsylvania, who earned his way up through the ranks. And fights for his team, fights for his players, and it's his way or the highway, and that's what works well here. You look at Mark D'Antonio, the guy that role player in college football, earned his stripes. One of the few defensive backs coaches that could survive coaching for Nick Saban. Whew. And he's that he's got a completely different personality than Nick Saban, and he's not, but earns the respect of his boss, goes and plays for coaches for a completely different guy in Jim Tressel, but a hard-nosed disciplinarian who believes in people and believes that football can make life better for human beings, and he wants to fight for his team, and he believes that he can do more with less. I remember when Ohio State got that waterfall in their locker room, and Mark D'Antonio was laughing about that a little bit, saying, "Hey, you think that's going to help them win more games?" That's what Michigan State needs. It needs a guy that, when you got a college football arm race, is I can out-evaluate you, I can outwork you, and I can fight for my team. And I think that's what works well for Michigan State. And hopefully, at some point, this program gets it back.
They've got some of that. They need to show that what they've been doing behind the scenes can gain some traction beginning on Saturday. We'll see what it looks like.
Some of that is also theater. Okay, some of it is like it's performance art. Some of the stuff on the sidelines, some of the stuff when coaches are giving it to the officials, it's to get something later on. Yeah. And it's like at a podium, sometimes you get a fine or you break something or something like that, even if it's not in your nature, because it's performance art. You're sending a message, and there is a messaging side to this that like whatever you're doing behind closed doors, you need to convey what you're doing with how you interface with your public and your fan base. Otherwise, you lose those fans, rightly or wrongly. But that's the way it is.
All right, we'll see what it looks like on Saturday. Thanks a lot, Paul. Appreciate it. We're going to go get warm. For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni from the Perlis Plaza on the campus of Michigan State University with the Spartans. You've been watching the VCast or SpartanMag.com.